Good morning, afternoon, midday. It's hard to tell what it is outside. It's so gray and so wet. It's a perfect day to spend my time down here in the studio. Pardon me, still clearing crud out of my face, but I'm fine. So today we're going to be playing with the latest addition to the Simply series. I kind of get obsessed with things, in case you didn't notice that. And I really love this old enamel cup with the, the pitted finish and the rust and all of that. And I really love doing these because they're a lot of fun. And the technique is fun, and you can play with a little bit, and you can make the cups look exactly the same or very close, or you can make them look completely different. You can change up the color palette. You can do all sorts of fun things with it. So it's a really fun technique to do. And then we're going to put in some nice blueberries, which to me is just a vintage berry to start with. Then a little bit of chamomile, because that's a nice soothing cup of tea. We're just going to have some fun with this today. And I love the country theme of this. But before we get on to that, happy Easter to everybody. We have some special giveaways today. We're not doing little envelopes today. We are doing boxes. We have 3 surprise boxes. I'm going to call them Easter baskets. They are boxes, but I'm going to call them Easter baskets. And I know, right? So we have... You want to show them? Okay. So show them. If you can, without knocking cameras and everything over. So there is, let's call it a crap ton of goodies. The boxes are filled with things from Tombow. There's goodies from DecoArt. There's brushes from Dynasty. There's stencils from yours truly. There's a whole bunch of goodies in this. Renee's inspecting, going through. You'd think he was getting
Cherry
one.
bomb.
Cherry bomb. And I've even got a pack of my lip balm in there for you guys. So yeah, there's tons of stuff. There's some paint from DecoArt from the new Love Color and from the new glass paint, I think it is, or the glass stain, or stained glass it's called. We have oodles of goodies, plus we've got a really cool little gift in there for you. It's an art bag, beautiful reusable shopping bag, and each one of them is different. One is Monet, one is Van Gogh, one is, I think, Manet, I believe. Anyway, just art bags. They're great. So you can use them for carrying your art supplies to and from classes, or you could use them for your grocery shopping or whatever you want to do. But they're nice, they're colorful, and of course they're art related. Plus there's a pile of goodies in there from Renee and myself. So each of those boxes has an estimated $200 US in value. There's all kinds of goodies in there. And we have 3 of them to give away. So it's an awesome, happy Easter gift. The other thing that I discovered this week, I hadn't really thought about it until this week, but I was cruising through the YouTube channel, and this is live number 339. That's a lot of lives. So I thought it was appropriate, because we've done so many, to have lots of goodies. So I went through my stash of goodies, and we put together these 3 boxes. So in order to get your name on the wheel, all you got to do is join us in the chat, say hello, hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to my channel, because I'd really like it if you did that. And just do all the things. Press all the buttons, join in the chat, have some fun, get your name on the wheel, and you could win one of those 3 great giveaways. So, got anything you want to discuss, my boy? No? No? You want to take Puppers out for a walk?
Yeah.
She's been interesting the last couple of days because it's done nothing but rain. It's miserable here. It's gross. It's spring, cold, wet. Ugh.
This is a dog that doesn't like...
And she doesn't like water, so... She doesn't like baths. She doesn't like... Well, she likes puddles. She likes puddles.
She'll stand in a puddle. She doesn't want it beyond her feet.
Yep. No, the rest of her has to stay dry. So... She just sort of does the ew. She doesn't even like to go out for a pee in the rain.
Yeah, she does the Yoda ears.
The Yoda ears, and I want to go home now. I want to say hi to Mary Emos. Mwah. Hello, sweetheart. Mary is our beloved Linda Safranco's darling mom, and she's always watching. And I just want her to know how much we appreciate you. You're so sweet. And I have a few other people to say hello from. Bette DeLong from Long Island. Good to see you, sweetheart. And Ramona, hello. And oh, there's a name I haven't seen before. Dawn Pahad Wilkie. Dawn, welcome. And Diane Hendricks, hello, sweetie. Diane says she likes the sunflowers behind me. I like the ladybug on this one. I was a busy girl yesterday. I made bread. I made rolls for dinner tomorrow. I made key lime pie, and then I came down here and painted. So I've been having so much fun. And Debbie Matthews is going to join us at net. Yay! I'm so excited. And Liz Minardo, my girl from Toronto. Hello, sweetie. And there's Lucy. Hello, Lucy. I hope you're feeling better, dear.
Well, there's Kiko.
And Keiko Ameda. Hello, Keiko. Nice to see you on here. My goodness, everybody's here today. Awesome sauce. And Kelly Cave. Hello. Oh. All right, guys. So I think everybody's hit the buttons. Everybody's hit the likes. And there's a ton of you joining us in the chat. Claudette Hunter. Hello.
Getting a lot of new names in here.
Well, Claudette's been around for a while. She's been with us for a long time, actually. Yep. There's Robin Storm and Linda Morgan. Hello, Linda. 6 inches of snow this morning.
Ugh.
Ew.
Keep it.
Yeah, we just got rid of the snow. There's Brenda Owen, and Harolyn Newell. Hello, Harolyn. And there's my buddy, Miss Deb. And Donna Pulse. Donna and Rich watch every weekend. I guess, well, every weekend that they're not out at various craft sales and whatnot. And Jane Schumann and Kay Duggan Reynolds. Hello, Kay.
And Truth is starting to feel human again.
Is she? Yeah. That's kind of scary. That means. And Valerie Clements. Hello, sweetheart. Judy Thacker's here. Yay.
Yay.
And Melina Nunez Lanca. Hello, Melina. All right, guys. I think I've said hello to almost everybody. I know I missed a whole bunch of you, but I've said hello to a bunch. So we are going to get started. If you are ready, so am I.
That one.
That's the one.
Boom. Oh man, look at that crisp, clear picture.
Ooh, nice. Now that you got the camera working. we had a few bad moments this morning. The down shot was not working. So this is the piece that we're going to paint today. I love this effect. I might get wobbly knees over stuff like this. I love these interesting little effects. And I've done this one before, but I just love doing it. So we're going to do it again. And we've got this rusty cup with a little bit of stamping. We've got some stenciling in the background. And then we've got these little flowers and some berries. And we're just going to have some fun with it today. So the surface that I'm working on is an 8 by 10. I've just got a nice little piece of MDF. This is a 1/16. It's very thin, but a 1/8 will work just as well. And even a 1/4 inch will work just fine because they will fit in a frame quite nicely. The other nice thing is that you could always put one of those little kickstand stands on the back of this and it would stand up really nicely on its own. So there's a variety of ways that you could display this. So we're going to start by developing our background for this one, and we're using one of my favorite colors for a background lately is this. This is deep midnight blue. Of course you could use a navy, but any really dark blue would work just fine. There's Kim Ish. I was thinking of you this morning, dear, when I put my favorite apron on. I've got skulls on everything. I was going through a bunch of skull stuff yesterday, and I have a lot of it. So we're going to base coat this 2 coats, midnight blue or deep midnight blue, and let it dry, and then give it a light sanding, and you'll be off to the races. So Our background, pardon me, I sound a little watery today, but nothing to worry about. We're going to use this one. This is M257. This is chicken wire stencil. I use this. I do use this one quite a bit. I like chicken wire. Chicken wire, polka dots, and checks. Those are, I think, my favorites. I love it. The weather is horrid right now. It's just very wet and ugly. And dismal and gray. Skies are gray. So I'm going to, pardon me, position my stencil. I like to tape mine in place so that it stays put. And then the color that I'm using for my stenciling is cobblestone. Now, I chose cobblestone for a reason. I didn't want a really sharp contrast. And I think that white or anything light is going to be a really sharp contrast against all that blue. So I decided on cobblestone. I like this gray neutral. It's a very nice tone, and it works really well for these country themed pieces. This does not have to be absolutely perfect. Not that I ever ask you to do anything perfectly, but I want this kind of distressed looking, imperfect, solid in some places, less so in others. And then you can work quickly. I love this color. Cobblestone is one of my favorites. It's a beautiful neutral. And it works so well for so many things. But it's particularly nice over top of this dark blue. Works really nicely over dark colors in particular. Still gives you nice contrast, but it's not a harsh contrast. So you can see the pattern is still nice and crisp, but it isn't glaring. It doesn't come screaming off of there. So I'm going to line this up, comme ça, if I can find it, just so that it's reasonably straight. Doesn't have to be perfect, but reasonably straight. We're going to cover the entire background. I like the idea of it being worn, time-worn, imperfect. It makes for a far more interesting background. I have never been a fan of seeing absolutely perfect, fully opaque pattern because to me it just looks contrived. It looks like a stencil. Whereas if the image is, worn and distressed in places, it just takes on a softer look. Doesn't look quite so harsh. And I don't like harsh. Harsh is no fun. So line that up, and again, tape it in place. That way they don't shift. There's Louise Long and Sue Potts. Hello, sweetie. How are things in Ontario? I know you guys are in for some nasty weather this weekend. I'm really hoping it just continues out into the strait and stays away from us. Storms at this time of year make me uneasy because they're usually miserable. And Miss Karen. Hello, Miss Karen. And Jane Burrows. Hello, Jane. Good to have you with us. And a happy Easter to you, too. So those 3 giveaways today are quite generous. There's oodles of goodies in there. Lots of creative fun to be had. We have quite a lot of stuff out here. And it does accumulate quickly, surprisingly enough. So I thought for Easter, the Easter bunny has to have something for you guys. So I thought it would be ideal. We do up these goodie boxes. Barely put a dent in the stuff we have laying around here from various sponsors and suppliers. So I thought it would be fun. And we put together those goodie boxes from the Easter Bunny. We like to have giveaways for everybody. There's Linnal. Hope you're feeling better, sweetheart. Everybody seems to be, the flu has been rampant this year. So many people have been down with it. If it's not the flu, it's one thing or another. RSV has been a big one around us here. So there is my background. Do I have a release date for the yellow daisies? Oh, for the brown-eyed Susans and the ladybug that I did yesterday? Yes, I do. It'll be available probably Sunday or Monday. It's almost finished. I have a tendency to write as I go, so it didn't take too long. I love it. I just had so much fun. I was just sitting here yesterday and playing with an idea, and that's what came up. And I usually do things with butterflies, but I decided on a ladybug this time. And this one was fun. It actually worked up very quickly, but it is pretty. And I love I love a yellow flower, and I love a yellow flower on black backgrounds, especially if it's got polka dots, because that's a me thing. Oh my goodness. Happy Easter, Terry. Oh goodness. Well, no, I'm so sorry you're not feeling well, dear. Crystal Rejman. Hello. Happy Easter to you too. I love ladybugs, and I don't think I've ever done one with a ladybug, so I thought it'd be fun. So the next step is we're going to distress this a little bit. We want to smooth this out. We want to wear through the paint in a few places. We want to distress that chicken wire in the back. So I'm going to give that a good sanding. If you're wondering about these, I love these. These are just the ideal little sander. And you can distress, sand. If it's a piece that you're going to leave unframed, make sure you sand those corners and the edges. Distress everything. Make it look really old. I'm on a bug kick. I was going through some old patterns the other day, and I came across a really old design that I did early 2000s, very early 2000s. It was called Le Petit Jardin, the little garden, and it was 3 pieces. It had a little butterfly, a little dragonfly, and a little bumblebee. And I had a 4th one that I never finished that had a ladybug on it. And I was looking at them the other day, and I was thinking, well, I could do that so much better now. So I'm kind of dug it out, and I've decided I'm going to do something else with it, because it's just, the techniques in it are a lot of fun. It's just that the materials now and some of the surfaces that are available would just do it so much more justice. So I'm kind of excited about that. I do really want to bug you, Cordy. Hello, Jeannette. Jeannette Benoit. Hello. And Heidi Ferlotte. The Easter Bunny is probably in a puddle somewhere at this rate. So I've sanded this, distressed this. We're going to age this a little bit. And the color I'm going to use is soft black. If I can find my soft black. It keeps escaping me. I don't know why. It always finds its way to somewhere it's not supposed to be. Soft black. I love soft black. Now, there's two ways you can do this. You can put a float, nice big float around the outside edge of this surface with the soft black. I'm going to use a nice BAB, nice big angled shader. Maze is singing upstairs. So I'm going to float a little bit of that soft black all the way around the outside edge. Now, make sure you get some of it on the area that you just sanded so that you get that stained look. No, it's not asphalted, Donna. Not yet. We're going to go soft black first. You can use asphaltum if you prefer. I have a weakness for soft black. I have a weakness for asphaltum too, but I think you guys know that. So, again, neatness doesn't count for this. We are not looking for perfection here. We're just looking to age the corners and the edges a little. So, et voila. I'm going to dry that real quick. Robin Harkless. And there's Faye Reeves and Robin McComb. Hello. Yes, asphaltum is coming. So you can decide how much of this you want. If you like it just a little bit dark and you would prefer to see more of the color, then by all means, don't feel that you're obligated to make it dark and heavy if that's not to your taste. I like the heavy aging and antiquing in the corners. That appeals to me. So I'm going to dry that. Now the second way you could do this is to apply it with a cloth or a piece of shop towel, one of my high-tech applicators. But if you don't want to try that, then you just float it in. It doesn't have to be perfect. So, although you can see a ring, I'm going to show you something. I rinsed out my brush. That ring was probably driving people crazy. And it's just because I've wet the surface. So if I just brush a little water over it and then dry it, that ring goes away. Good morning, Charmaine and Faye Reed. Hello. And Bev. See? Bye-bye. So the next thing we're going to do is put a little asphaltum on. Because, it's me. So I've got my asphaltum. I love this color. You guys know that. For those of you that are watching for the first time, this is perhaps my favorite color. Yes, it's a brown, but it is a very special brown. I'm going to take my angled shader this time with a little bit of asphaltum. And we're going to float right over top of that as well. And this I like the kind of aged and it's been laying around in the barn look since time out of mind that this gives everything. It gives you that aged appearance without looking really dirty. And a lot of the time I find burnt umber, which is a popular one for aging things, I find it just ends up looking a little grubby. But that, again, is a personal thing. So if you prefer to use burnt umber for that, by all means. But I'm a fan of my asphaltum. So I went over all of that soft black. There we go. Oh, I love it. Now, there's a reason why I just do it around the outside edge. It's because it gives you a nice frame around the element that goes in the center. Now, I have a piece prepped, but I don't have any of this done on it. But that's okay, because I'm going to show you that you can actually do it after the fact, too. So look at that. So we've got a nice aged appearance around the outside. But now this isn't in the same tonal range as the rest. Debbie, I am using, this is a 1-inch Dynasty Faux Squirrel angled shader. It's a great big one. This is one of my favorite BABs. Big ass brush. That's what a BAB is. So I'm going to thin some asphaltum. I'm going to thin it out, and we're going to put a wash of asphaltum over the whole surface. An oil equivalent of asphaltum. Yes, but not every paint line has it. A yellow sepia or a golden sepia is equivalent or close, but asphaltum is a unique color. And some paint lines will have an asphaltum, and that is what it's called, but not all. I love it. It's always been a favorite for me. I've always found that, although I love the antique look, don't get me wrong, it's totally a matter of preference. I prefer the softer and more translucent look of asphaltum to the more opaque version using a burnt umber. I also find that burnt umber, it's an umber, so it has a tendency to flatten out other colors a little bit, subdue them a bit more. And I find that asphaltum is a little less heavy that way. That's my preference. But again, my preference. So there we go. So we've balanced the tone of this by putting that thin wash over top. Desperately need a BAB base coating brush, a big one for backgrounds, etc. Janet, you cannot go wrong with an oval, an encaustic oval, what I call my fugly brush. I use those, but if you prefer something softer, just a second. Not everybody likes the harsher brush. I'm a fan, but not everybody is. Here's a couple that I can recommend highly. This one is the 3/4 oval in the Evo Art. This is that new line from Dynasty. This is a beautiful brush for both for base coating and for varnishing. I really like this brush quite a lot. And the same type of brush with a different filament. This is the Dynasty Faux Squirrel. Again, I like this for base coating as well. But it also is a beautiful varnishing brush. Yes, Donna, that's absolutely true. Every manufacturer has a slightly different tone. I have used the Folk Art asphaltum, and in a pinch, it will do just fine. I just find that it is extremely pigmented, so you really have to reduce it quite a bit. But I have used it. Keep some in my cupboard, just in case. Hello, Elaine Saith. I hope I'm saying that right. From rainy Wisconsin, it can't make up its mind. I think that who carries the Evo Art brushes? Those are available from the Brush Guys at thebrushguys.com, and you have a coupon code. Use the coupon code Tracy M. Capital TRACY, capital M. Will give you a discount on all the brushes that you purchase from thebrushguys.com. Not just Dynasty brushes, all brushes. So if you have a preference, it gives you a continued discount. I love somebody asked me what this was. This is my fugly brush. This one isn't really all that fugly. This one is actually in pretty good shape compared to some of them. I love these. These are my favorite base coating brushes. Everything gets base coated with these things because you can't kill them. Well, you can kill them, but it'll take you a while. I love them. Brenda Sawyer, you were weeding your blueberry bush? You have blueberry bushes? I'm jealous. So from this point, you are ready to trace and transfer your line drawing. I've already done a little bit of work ahead. As I said, I don't have any of the background done on this one, which is fine, because I'm going to show you how to do it after the fact. So I love this. This is a fun piece to me. I just think it's really pretty. The first thing that I did was base coat my cup. I base coated this with 2 coats of warm white. What is that fugly brush? The fugly brush is a 1-inch Dynasty and Caustic oval. It is a natural hair brush. It's like a large filbert. I love these. These things are just awesome for base coating. I have about 10 of them, and I will show you why I call it my fugly brush. This is why. Because when they're really working well and you've used them quite a bit, they're pretty fugly. That's why it's called a fugly brush. But I love these. I have them in every size, the little one, the mid-size, and the great big one. Dawn Kenny Paksowski. I know I probably said that wrong, sweetheart, and I'm so sorry. But hello to you, too. I hope you're having a great weekend. I was suspicious the first time I tried to brush it, and it just happened to be a great brush for that. It is. It's a great brush for all sorts of things. It's one of those brushes that, you know, you don't expect it to be a really great brush, but it is. So this one is a fun piece because we're going to use some really simple techniques to do some really cool things. And one of my favorite tools is painter's tape for a whole bunch of reasons. But we're going to use it right here on that line, that tabletop line. We're going to run a piece of tape right there because we're going to use a very messy technique for putting in the highlights on that back wall. So I'm going to grab a little bit of warm white, just a touch, you don't need much. And I'm using, this is the Dynasty Faux Squirrel 1/2-inch angle. And I've got my little jar of Jo Sonja Fast Dry Glaze. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of Jo Sonja. And we're going to take just a little bit of white paint and we're going to thin it out. Really thin. And then we're going to just sort of slap a little bit of that white in there. It's heavily thinned. And it's just a slap. And then while it's still wet, see what I'm doing? It's just sort of pitty-patted in there. Then while it's still wet, you're going to take a mop and you're just going to soften the edge of that little bit that you've done there. Et voila. I'm going to dry that real quick. And Suzanne Gagnon, hello from Sudbury. How are things in Sudbury, Ontario? She's right smack in the nickel belt. A little bit more. And then I just soften the edge of that a little bit, like so. So that gives us that little highlight in behind the cup and on that back wall. Easy peasy. No, well, that's how I meant it, Patrick. Well, there you go. It might be cloudy, but the birds are singing. That just means there's good weather to come. So there we go. So we've got that nice little highlight above the tabletop line. So now we're going to take a little bit of that soft black and we're going to darken right below that. We're just going to put a little float of that soft black. Just at that tabletop line and just blend it out. Like so. This just gives us a tabletop. And then while we're at it, we're going to put a nice little shadow underneath our cup. We kind of want this cup to be sitting on the table, but it needs to have a little bit of depth. There we go. Nice little float. You can come in there a little later on with a little bit of lamp black, just to give it a little extra depth if it's needed. But I'm going to bring that soft black in and around our little flower here. Again, not super neat and tidy, just a little bit. I don't worry too much about working over that line drawing because we're going to paint it anyway, so it doesn't matter. There we are. So we've got a nice little shadow under our cup. It doesn't look like much right now, but it will a little later on. It always surprises me how quickly this comes together. Here we go. So remember what I said, after the fact we can do this? I'm going to show you. So I'm going to make sure that's dry because I don't want to wash it off. I'm going to come back in with my big angled shader. And I'm going to bring in that soft black into those corners. Again, neatness doesn't count for this. So don't beat yourself up if it's not perfect, because it doesn't need to be. We are aging this. We're giving it some time. And the imperfections make this so much more interesting. There we go. I'm a putzer. I like putzing with my pieces. So as I'm painting them, I just like, oh, it needs a little more here or a little more there. So it's not unusual for me to go back several times. Oh, Patrick. Oh. I hope to God you're not relying on me to teach you English. I could probably teach you a lot of bad things. Sherry, you are not wrong. I very rarely use a mop brush, but there are certain times where I like to diffuse the edges of things. So yes, it is unusual to see me with one, but yes. Hello, Miss Margie. For those of you that are members of my membership group, then you probably saw Margie's submission for the challenge for this month. It is absolutely gorgeous. Actually, for those of you that have already subbed, you've all done an amazing job. Margie's was the first thing I saw this morning, and it just, wow, blew me away. Here we go. this is the fun part. I love putzing with this stuff. So I'm going to grab my BAB and I'm going to go in with a little asphaltum because I can. It's my party. This is half the fun. Yeah, if you're part of the membership group and you haven't seen Margie's submission, it's beautiful. She is an incredibly talented designer. Oh, that's not kindness, Margie, that's the truth. Mary Ann Abrahamson. I know I'm not saying that well, but thank you for joining us. Bonnie Duncan. Yes, I am feeling better, sweetheart. Thank you very much. There we go. Alrighty, now we're making headway. So we're going to move on to this little cup. And you don't have to do this in this order. You can do this in any order. I did fine. Thank you, Marianne. You're very sweet. I have days where I could mess up the Lord's Prayer. So if I can manage to say something without offending anyone, I'm doing well. So I always have toys. And I know you're terribly surprised to see this, but there's a cancellation stamp there. Several of them, in fact. And I've got to dig out my... This is my favorite. I love these. Anytime you can get a set of alphabet stamps. And by the way, I got another set the other day because, you know, I'm weak that way. I found a really cute little set of alphabet stamps and I had to have it. So, because I'm weak. So, look at this. You got to have fun with these. They're awesome. I love stamps. So, because you can add really fun little things. Now, I use the word simplify. You could do whatever you want. So, as far as the word goes, if you don't want to use a stamp, don't want to use the words, you don't have to by any stretch. But I like the word simplify. But what else would be a good word to put on there? Look at that. Simplify would work. Anything that sort of inspires you a little bit. For me, you know, simplifying life. Life is complex enough, so why make it more complex? So that's my attitude. So that's what I chose to do. The other thing I chose to do was to use a little... I was thinking of Patrick the other day when I was doing this one. I found this beautiful stamp. This one is touched in. Believe would work too. Simplify, kindness. Yep. Yeah, Dee and I do that too. If I want them straight, I'll tape them all together, assuming that I have all the letters. Something that's really cute that I've been seeing a lot lately on handmade things, or not just handmade things, but on commercial items. The lettering is, you know, a mixture of different fonts and different sizes, which I thought was kind of cute too. Patrick, I was thinking of you when I dug this one out the other day. It's a cancellation stamp, but it's written in French on the side from Paris that I thought was quite cute. I found a bunch of different ones. So because I'm working in asphaltum, I'm using, this is a brown stamp pad called Timber Brown from Stays On. It doesn't have to be that. It could be whatever. But when you're stamping something like this, I always like to sort of take it off the surface a little bit for a couple of reasons. I just find if it's stamped right on, it looks kind of flat and uninteresting. So I always like to incorporate one that doesn't fully go on the front of the surface. So I like to have one go off a little bit. But in order to have that work, oh, it's a little faint, you have to block it so it doesn't go onto your background. So a simple little piece of tape will work just fine. So make sure I've got lots of ink on there. That's better. This one is from New Haven, Connecticut. And I don't know where this one's from. Let's find out. Oh, this one's from Avion. Aveyron. Interesting. There, look at that. Some fun. I love this kind of thing. So, as I said, you could use the word simplify. Just breathe or breathe. Ooh, that's a good one. I like that. Breathe. Ooh, now you've given me another idea. So this cup actually has a tag on it. I just put a little heart on it. I didn't want to put any words. And I did it so that the word is, comes out from underneath it. So simplify, SIMPLIFY. Where's the I? I'm not overly concerned with whether or not they're straight. As again, simplify. And there's the Y. Okay. I like it. And then I'll have to put all of those stamps back in the box. Simplify. Now I really want this to have that look that it's been Avion. Then I know where you live because I've been to Avion. That should frighten you somewhat, Patrick. That I know where you live. Instead of sounding convenient, that sounds a little threatening, doesn't it? I like the staggered look. Believe in yourself. That's what I would think would be fun. That, although I use the word simplify, you could use whatever you like. And then it's a subtle message, whether to yourself or to anyone else. I think that's what appeals to me about that. So, we've got this marvelous little cup with all of this stamping on it. If you don't have the stamps, you could use a stencil. You could use your own handwriting. There's all kinds of fun things you can do. Now, I have a couple of dollar store brushes here. And there's a reason for it. I don't feel too badly if I have to throw these ones out because they get this texture medium in them. Should you be worried? Only if I start buying plane tickets, Patrick. Only if I start buying plane tickets. So the medium that I'm using is this. This is texture sand. Now you can get this at Michael's. It's available in a bottle. And it's in the area where they keep mediums. And it is a texture medium. You can't find it in these jars, but it also comes in a 2-ounce bottle, so you don't have to have the big container. Now, I've got a little bit of it on my palette here. I'm going to move the camera so you can see what I'm doing. So I've got a little bit here on the palette, and we're going to mix a little color with that. Now, you can do it with a little bit of asphaltum. I'm kind of obsessed with this color of late. Aw, Patrick, that's sweet. Thank you. This is red spice. If you don't have red spice, you can use a little bit of burnt sienna. And we're going to put about an equal amount of this in there, but I'm going to add a drop or two of asphaltum. Just 2 drops. I just want to brown it up a little bit. And we're going to mix this really well. And then I'm going to explain why I'm using a dollar store brush. This texture medium has a grit in it. It has a little bit of sand. It's a mica, actually. A little bit of silica, I think is the word I was looking for, not mica. And it can jam up your brush so fast, it'll ruin a good quality paintbrush very quickly. So for this kind of thing, I have a tendency to gravitate towards using an inexpensive brush simply because it'll make a mess. And it'll ruin a perfectly good brush. Otherwise, I'm going to grab a smaller one because I think that one's a little too big. There we go. This one's too big. And again, this is just a dollar store cheapy, you know, a made in Taiwan type thing. So we're going to create that rust, and it's going to actually have a texture to it. So we're going to pick up a little of that texture and paint mixture with your cheapy brush. If you have a beat up old Deerfoot, you can use that. You can use an old blender, an old filbert, something that doesn't function the way it's supposed to anymore, simply because it is going to wreck the brush, especially if you do this frequently. And I wouldn't want you to ruin a high quality brush to do this. So the texture that we're creating is this. See this rust here and here all along in these patches up here? That's what we're going to create with this. And I love this look. I just think it's cool. And we're going to work right over those stamps because that's fun. And you're just going to lightly tap this in, like so. Don't worry if it's not fully opaque because it doesn't matter. It will end up being opaque when we're done anyway. So I'm going to, clean up the mess I made along there. So we need a goodly patch. And we need a little bit underneath the rim of this cup, like so. And we're just tapping it in, creating a little bit of texture. And I like to bring some down. And we're going to put a little bit over here. Doesn't have to be perfect. Don't worry about it if it's not getting right to the edge. It's okay. And you can pick and choose where you want to put it. It doesn't all have to be in one spot. You can have just a little, or you can have a lot. It's entirely up to you. I'm a big fan of a lot. And I like it to be pretty crusty, so I can put as much or as little on wherever I like. And you can come back in and put on more. The more you put on, the rougher it's going to be, the more realistic it's going to be. So it does not have to be perfect. And you can do little bits, little patches. You can have it come all the way across the bottom if you want. I kind of like that. Just let it run out a little bit. So yeah, it looks a little structured right now, but it's going to look better, I promise. So again, I'm just using a little bit. You can come back in and make it heavier. You can dry it, put a little more on. Each time you put more on, it gets a little rougher. There we go. Oh, this is so fun. I love this type of thing. I like being able to take paint and make it look like the real thing, and this will do it. I love that this has that little bit of light texture, and you can put little bits in. It doesn't all have to be in one spot. So that's looking pretty good. I'm pretty pleased with that. I'm going to grab a little bit more for this corner here, just because I really want that texture. And I like that some of that stamp is covered with this, because it gives it the appearance that this was actually part of the original cup. Am I topping it on? Yes. Just using it to sort of dab it on. Just like that. And then you can move it around a little. So it gets a little more opaque each time you put some on. And again, I'm using a dollar store brush because I don't want to wreck my good quality brushes using this texture medium. And it will wreck them because it's really hard on the brushes. The color that I used red spice. If you don't have it, you can use burnt sienna. And I added a couple of drops of asphaltum just to make it a little bit darker. So I'm going to dry this. And then the next color we're going to use is kind of going to make this really come together. I'm going to put a little bit of this red spice on my palette, just by itself. There we go. Almost dry. So cool. And I'm going to grab my 1/2-inch angle. And I'm going to pick up my asphaltum. I love this color. And this is where we're going to add a shadow down this side, right over top of that texture. Put it right over top of it. And we are going to do this a couple of times. So don't panic if it doesn't look exactly the way it's supposed to right off the bat. So we're going to put a float underneath the lip of that cup. I always love how this looks. And then it starts to look really good once we get layers on. And I'm all about the layers. Get those layers in. Little bit of asphaltum all the way across. There we go. Now it's going to look a little bit sloppy, like it's almost like a square in the center. But we're going to pull a little of that asphaltum, just like this. Remember that float we did? We're going to walk it in towards the middle a bit. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And just walk that float in. So it's not going to be pretty, and it doesn't have to be. There's 2 coats of warm white on this, and base coated vertically, so that Subron. I've seen adding soda to paint for texture would be similar to the sand. It will garner you the same effect, but with one downside. Baking soda is caustic, and it will break down the acrylic in the paint and start flaking off. It may do it in 3 weeks, it might do it in 3 years, but it will break down the paint. I have never been a proponent of adding baking materials to paint to garner a faux finish because it's not stable. You're playing with chemistry. So, little float on the handle. I love this. So it's starting to take shape. Not quite the same silica. It's a little coarse. Whenever you're adding something to a product like paint, paint is designed to be stable, and it has a limit to how much you can add and what you can add to it. Anytime that you add something that is not designed to work with a product, you run the risk of the product failing. So that's why I'm not a big fan of adding something caustic to like baking soda. That's been a big thing for the last few years, people adding baking soda to paint. There are additives that you can purchase that are designed to work with paint to get those finishes. However, somebody just asked me if we can add sand. Sand is a neutral. And so, yes, you can use sand. But again, keep in mind that the volume of sand that you use directly affects how the paint is going to adhere to whatever you're painting. That's something you always have to keep in mind. This medium, that texture sand, actually has more of the same binders that are used in the paint. So it prevents the paint from reaching that critical point where it no longer wants to bind. So anytime you're doing something like that, keep in mind that you are affecting the paint's ability to bind. Even when we add water to it, we compromise the paint's integrity. So you have to constantly keep in mind. That's one of the reasons that I use a medium. Instead of thinning paint with water, I use this medium, that Joe Sonia's Fast Dry, because it maintains the binders, so it helps the paint stick to the surface. It doesn't compromise the paint's ability to adhere. So you can still thin the paint, but still let it adhere. So I've put a few floats of asphaltum over top of that. Now we're going to have a little bit of fun. Because I love, look at that. Look at our cup. It's really starting to look. This is just lamp black at the rim. So at this point, I want to start adding some more rusty layers to this. So I'm going to grab my round brush, I think, for this. It's a little easier. And I'm going to thin out a little bit of that red spice. Love this color. It is a really juicy orangey red. Fabulous color. And we're going to, I like this to be quite runny and drippy. So we're going to add a little of that color and let it drip. I like the drippy thing. So I've got a little bit of that thinned paint there. If I whack it, ooh, look at that. Now I've got drips. I love the drips. The drips work for me. The drips are important. And it's important to have a drip coming from those points, those long points, because that's why you get that rust the way it is in the first place. Here we go. So now I have drips. I love the drips. And I love the stains that this causes, that little bit of red. The thing about rust is that when water runs off of it, it stains things. Correct? And so it's always fun to see what the stain is going to do. And I like using a little bit of glaze to make things run and to cause those stains because it reacts. So I don't want that hard drip, so I'm just going to pull a little color off with my brush. Just touch the surface and let the brush drink up the excess so that you don't get, a really hard line. So I'm going to dry that. 120 miles. Patrick, I grew up just the German side of the border from Strasbourg. Hi, Caitlin Olson. Good to have you with us. Kaylin, sorry. So to me, this is just fun. So we're going to do the same thing with a little bit of that asphaltum when this is dry. I love this look. So I'm taking a little bit of thinned asphaltum, and we're going to do the same thing. Heavily thinned, let it get runny, and let it run. Tap it a little bit if you need to get it going. Yahoo! There we go. Whoops, a little too far. I love asphaltum for this. I like the distressed appearance of this. And that little bit of water or a little bit of glaze will just help make it run a little bit better. And I can wash away the excess here because I made a mess. I made it drippy. So you can see this cup is taking on an interesting age, an interesting look. And I think I've got just about enough on there. I really like this effect. I think it works very well. And then I can take a little of that red and just brush a little of that thinned red in places. So you can put as much or as little as you like. Because you have the brush, you can control how much you get. I love it to really look like it's been around the block. And the more you play with it, the more fun you have with it. So I'm going to dry that, and then we're going to shade and add our final highlight to this cup. I'm going to use a little bit of soft black to age this, or to deepen this a little bit. Oof. 5-minute break, Robin. Yes, take one. So when it comes to this antique look, you can do as little or as much as you like. No, you wouldn't want to drink out of this cup. I love this look. I just think it's fun. I'm going to. You can have so much fun with this technique. So imagine taking an actual cup and painting this to look like this. It's really simple. So I'm going to grab a little bit of one of my favorite oranges. I'm going to grab a little bit of orange flame, if I can find it. There it is. So I've got a little bit of orange flame, and I've got a little bit of, where's my soft black? Soft black. Now, oops, good Lord, I am an absolute disaster with the paint bottle today. So, a little bit of soft black. This is going to be our darkest shading color. And this actually helps this look so much older. Little float of that soft black. Go right over top of all of that orange underneath the lip of that cup. And we're going to come down. Now the float on the left side is going to be fairly narrow, but it needs to be fairly dark. We need a nice dark line there. And across the bottom. Look at our cup, it's looking so distressed. Across the bottom, just like so. We need that bottom edge and those corners to be nice and dark. And then the shadow on this side is going to be double the width of the shadow on the other side. So we need this to walk out a little bit. I want that dark shadow to be quite dark, like that. There we go. Look at that. Look at our cup. And I'm going to put a nice dark shadow on our handle, on the back side, right over top of that rust. There we are. Don't be shy with it. Don't worry about it being neat and tidy. Take one look at this cup. You know it's not neat and tidy. It's never been cared for. It's been set outside. Carrie Henderson, yes, I do have a recipe for leg of lamb. Kathy Gunther, better late than never, sweetheart. So let's dry this really well. We're going to grab my fugly brush for a second. One of my ugliest fugly brushes. One of my fuggliest fugly brushes. There we are. Now remember that dollar store brush that we had? We're going to take a little bit of that orange flame, which is that really bright orange. There's a reason why I use that dollar store brush, because this stuff is really hard on brushes, especially for this next bit. So I've got a little bit of orange flame in that brush, and we're going to just lightly dry brush over top of that rust. And all it does is it just makes that sandy, coarse texture stand out. It doesn't add a really bright highlight, but it sure makes that texture stand up. It's like it gives it a little oomph. And I love that it stands up. I'm going to bring this up to the camera as close as I can. Look at how rough that looks with that little bit of orange on top. I love it. And it just makes everything look great. Love it. Now, the lip of this cup is done with lamp black. It's just one. And I'm going to grab a little bit of warm white. I'm going to clean out that brush a little bit. I'm going to grab a little bit of warm white on that dollar store brush because I think that's the ideal one to do this with. And I'm just going to add a little dry brush. The highlight is sort of left center, left of center on this. So we're going to dry brush with a long pull of warm white like that. And then we're going to come in a bit and just scumble a little bit like so. Just on that left center portion of that lip. And then we're going to take a small, either a liner or a small round, and we're just going to put a little stroke, little stroke of warm white in the center of it, just to give it a little highlight. We've got one more thing to do to this cup. Remember the fugly brush? I told you about the fugly brush. We're going to take a little bit of asphaltum and thin it out. And you're going to focus right on the center portion of this cup, and you're going to spatter it with a little asphaltum, like so. So now your cup really looks dinged up, and it does need a little highlight in a couple of places. So thinned out warm white. And remember the center of this cup right here, right underneath that first highlight, we're going to put just a light stroke of thinned warm white. That's it. And then on the inside edge of that handle, right there, we're going to put a little stroke of warm white, like that. And that is your rusty cup. Such a fun technique, and you can do so many So many fun things with this technique. I've done little dollar store clocks, make them look rusty. You can have a blast with this. Let's see, what did I miss? Kathy Gunzer, you just organized all your pattern packets into binders. You used an entire one just for mine. Oh my goodness. Talk to you. You and Linda Safranco need to talk. Hi, Corinna. Happy Easter to you too. There. So such a fun technique. Now you can enhance this a number of different ways. Now mine has a little tag on it. Actually, in the line drawing, it's a fair size tag. So you can trace that back on. I'm just going to freehand one on here. So here's my tag. I got a line there. I'm just going to sketch one in. It's probably not exactly the same, but that's okay. I'm just going to sketch one in. Like so. It's kind of right. So I'm going to grab my angled shader and we're going to put a shadow underneath the tag. It's a little drop shadow. We're going to make this look like it's not actually sitting on the surface. So we're going to come over here to the upper point, just to the right of the point of the tag. And I only want this, that's a little wide, like so. And I'm going to do the same thing here and here. I'm going to stop short. So when I do that, it implies that the shadow, the light is hitting this side to the left and down, which is where our highlight is. So that tag is now casting a shadow. It doesn't look like much until we put that base color in. So I'm going to dry that really well. And then I'm going to base coat the tag with warm white. And again, neatness does not count for this tag. I like to put it so that it just slightly overlaps the lettering. I don't want it to cover everything, but I like it to overlap it a little bit. It just makes things a bit interesting. And I kind of like freehanding it in because then no two of these looks exactly the same. Of course, it would help if they were, straight. Better fix that. Good gravy, Marie. Yeah, we'll try to get that new piece up either tomorrow or Monday. I'm hoping I can play with my pencils tomorrow for a little while. And voila. So you can see that little shadow does wonders. Elaine Ann, good to have you with us. I am feeling a lot better. Thank you. That's very kind. So I'm going to dry this. I had a little bit of fun with my tag. I kind of like the idea of just a simple design on it. I didn't want it to be garish and, too cutesy or quirky. Patrick, you want to put a chip on your cup? Yes, absolutely. Use the same technique and then highlight. Yep, absolutely. It will work. Debbie. Debbie, so you know, Karen and I have been friends for 40 years. Yes, she probably does have every single pattern I've ever made. So look how cool. I just love how those turn out every single time. They're never exactly the same, but they're always some fun. Do I teach color pencil art too? To my membership group, yes. Yeah. I limit my color pencil classes to my membership group. So I'm using a little asphaltum. I'm just going to float around the outside edge of the tag with a little bit of asphaltum. It's heavily thinned. But it's just enough to make it so that it's not glaring white. And I don't want it so dark that, that it's the same color as the shadow. So just make it aged a bit. Yes, you did. Debbie Matthews, yes, you did. I remember. Absolutely. Has it really been 20 years? Holy Moses. Well, I still can't believe Karen and I have known each other for 40 plus. So that one kind of throws me every once in a while. But, yep. Time flies when you're having fun. That's what they say. So I'm going to use a little bit of thinned lamp black. If I can find it. There it is. I don't often use lamp black, but except for backgrounds. I use black for backgrounds. So I'm going to use a liner brush, and we're going to put a string on this tag, like so. And then it's a black line, so it disappears pretty quickly. So I like to put a little bit of a highlight on it with just a fine little line of warm white to one side, like so. So I'm going to dry that. I'm going to put just a little stroke rose in the center, or a stroke, not a rose. I'm going to put a little stroke heart on there using a little bit of thin asphaltum. I want it a little darker than the paper. So I'm going to make like a teardrop one way and another teardrop the other way. I don't want this to be fully opaque or really dark. Oh my God. Oh, goodness. Carol Colbert, hello, sweetie. So I've got that little heart on there, and as I always do, I'm going to use a gel pen just to sketch in a little line. I like the little sketchy lines. I don't like a hard edge. I like a little sketchy line. It just, I don't know. It's much more fun. There we go. So there is your cup. I really love doing this technique. I just think it's fun, and you can do so many cool things with it. And it works on almost anything. That's the fun part. So we've got some blueberries. We have a few leaves, and we have some white pip berries up here, and we have some chamomile. I'm a big fan of chamomile. I'm also a big fan of blueberries. I love blueberries. So I'm going to tell you a story about the blueberries and about the person who inspired this piece. Karen Jones actually inspired this piece. Before Karen moved out west, she was packing up and getting stuff done, and she had a big freezer. She'd come home from the island. She's originally from Prince Edward Island. She'd come home from the island, and someone had given her an awful lot of blueberries. An awful lot of blueberries. So, of course, she packed them up, all, perfectly bagged and ready for the freezer. And then she had to move, so she couldn't take all these frozen blueberries with her, so they ended up at my house. And over the past couple of years, I've been using up blueberries on a fairly regular basis, from blueberry muffins, for blueberry scones, blueberry pie. And recently, I went into the freezer to get something, and I found the last remaining bag of these blueberries. And it immediately made me all misty, because I really miss my girl. Because she's out west now. She's not across town type thing. So I really missed her, and I got thinking about her. And now every time I say blueberries, that's the first thing that I'm reminded of is her. So that's why I did this. Because I was reminded of her with the blueberries, because I found them in the freezer. They are, however, now homemade jam. Just so you know, Gary, I made blueberry jam. So, this piece was painted because of frozen blueberries. I know this is a sick and twisted way to get around to it, but that's essentially it. I painted this because I missed my friend. So, where is my filbert? I'm looking for a small filbert or a small round. There's a small round. That'll do. So I've got a number 4 round, and the color we're going to use for those blueberries are the same color we used in the background. So I'm using a little bit of that deep midnight blue. We're going to base coat the blueberries. This is a great color, this deep midnight blue. I've never quite understood why they call it deep midnight, because it's not really that dark. It has a nice gray undertone, and it covers quite well, but it has a nice there's a richness to this color, and there's a subtlety to this color. And it's just a great one for blueberries. And you'll see what I mean in a minute when I show you. So blueberries, everybody assumes that blueberries are blue. They're more reddish than anything, except the skin of the blueberry. Skin on blueberries is this deep dark blue, and then it has this frosty look to it, like this little gray overtone. And that's one of the reasons I think that this color is so perfect for blueberries. Because of that. It's just a perfect blueberry color. So I'm using all of those blueberries to get a coat of this deep midnight blue, that same blue that's in the background. And then we're going to make them look super dark. And we're going to do that with a little bit of lamp black. Yes, Debbie Matthews, I know. Char was wonderful. And you two were joined at the hip for so many years. There we go. So we're going to use a little bit of lamp black. And as crazy as it sounds, we're going to make a little bit of Bahama Blue. You can use Bahama Blue or Blue Harbor. I really liked Blue Harbor for these. That's not Blue Harbor. Where's my Blue Harbor? Oh my gosh, where's my Blue Harbor? That is so frustrating. There it is, Blue Harbor. Another color that works really well for this is Perfect Perry. Where's my Karen? There. So Blue Harbor. I'm going to give that a good shake because apparently it hasn't had a good shake in a while. So we're going to have a little bit of fun with Blue Harbor. There we go. That's better. So we're going to shade these berries. I'm going to use a smaller angled shader. I'm going to use a 3/8. And we're going to use a little bit of that lamp black. And now I thin it out. I don't use it full strength. I thin it out a little bit. And we're going to shade the bottom of these berries. Down and in. Got to get into those little spaces in behind those berries. Like so. This is just, I love this color with that blue. Look at that. And don't worry, they're going to look a little sketchy here for a bit. That's all right. Because we're going to come back in with a little more blue and make them stand out. I'm just making sure that I haven't missed any. Now, they have a little, which would be the blossom end. And that blossom end needs a little shadow. So we're going to put a little C-stroke inside where that little tuft is. I think that's the word I'm looking for. So there'd be a little round part at the top. We're going to put a little C-stroke like that. I'm trying to remember where they all are. There we go. So we have that little C-stroke thing in there because we need to put that little open area, the blossom end of the berry. Comme ça. Pretty simple. We're not going for meticulous, teeny tiny detail with this. Somebody asked me what's for dinner tonight. Tonight we're going very simple. Last night we had fish and chips. It was Good Friday. So we had fish and chips. We had deep fried haddock and deep fried cod. With all the trimmings, coleslaw, French fries, all that good stuff. Tonight we are having hot dogs. Just plain old hot dogs. Because we want to keep it simple tonight. Tomorrow night we are having a baked pineapple ham and mashed potatoes, mashed turnip and carrot, and we're having broccoli with a cream cheese sauce and the baked ham, and then for dessert we are having lemon meringue pie. That's tomorrow for Easter dinner. I decided on a ham. Haven't had a ham in a while. We had roast leg of lamb at Christmas, and then at New Year's we had prime rib. So we're not big fans of turkeys. Kara, let me book my flight. I'll be there for dinner tomorrow. Ooh, nice. Smoked ham. Oh my goodness. So we've got the berries. We're going to use this color for our highlights. This is Blue Harbor. I like this color for a couple of reasons. It has a little purple undertone to it that is really very nice. But it also has a fair amount of white in it, so it tends to take on that chalky look that we associate with blueberries. So I'm going to put nice little highlights on the upper edge of these berries. Upper left, remember that dot there, that white? That's what we're doing.
Give me that one.
Oh. So there is our, I love this color. Look at those blueberries. They're just popping. Oh, curry dinner with all the goodies. Yummy. I love curry. So we've got all of that on there, but we need, remember there's a little ruffle on that. So I like to take a little bit of that Blue Harbor, and we're just going to use the tip of the brush, and above that round area, it's just a little tap, and then again below it. Above it, just a little tap, and then below it. We're keeping it very simple. And again. Here we go. We have blueberries. There we are. So we have lovely blueberries. I like that these have the light, but they're not perfect. God forbid anything should be perfect. So we have lovely blueberries. I love it. I love blueberries. We are going to come back in and put a brighter highlight on them a little later on, but we're going to, if I can find the right color. Oh, good heavens. I do have a gift for misplacing things these days. I'm looking for, can't seem to find my green. Aloe. I love this color. Aloe is such a pretty green. What is this? Stockade has new owners and is reopening in May. That's fantastic news. I wonder who the new owner is. For Canadians, that's great because it would be awesome to have that opportunity. So we need to paint some leaves in. I like the little teardrop shaped leaves that you often see on blueberries here. Now here where I live, we have a lot of wild blueberries. Not the commercialized version. So they have these little teardrop shaped leaves on the wild berries, very rounded. And so I really like that idea. And we have 3 of them right here. Ooh, too much water. Too much water. So I've got that 3 little leaves there. And then we have leaves over here. Now I'm using a round brush just to do these as a common stroke leaf. Keep them simple. Don't overthink it. They don't have to be perfect. Besides, we still have work to do on them. Any little flaws that you may perceive will be dealt with accordingly. So we have leaves. Look at that. I'm thinking these ones need to be a little bit bigger because, you know, I messed up that first one. So there we go. The leaves. Now the color I used for the blueberry leaves is aloe. Great color. It's one of those ones that sort of sat in the paint rack for the longest time until I figured out that there were so many more things you could do with it than just, you know, admire it from a distance. So this is aloe for these leaves. Now you can use lush green, you can use antique green, or you can use this new green that DecoArt just put out, which is called Avocado Toast, which I'm kind of enamored with, if I can find it. Honest to Pete, I couldn't find my butt with both hands some days. There we go. Huckleberries have a slightly, there's like a slightly bitter undertaste to them, like in the back, which I kind of like. I like huckleberries myself. Yes, aloe for eucalyptus leaves is pretty. I also like desert cactus if you want the darker green. So this is Avocado Toast. That's that new green that DecoArt just put out this year. I really like this. I like the lighter value of it. It's a very pretty green. And I like that it's got a little more yellow in it. It's very nice. And I just realized I missed a blueberry. There's one down here behind this little flower. So I'm going to put a coat of this Avocado Toast on these leaves here. And if you've been painting with me for a while, you know that I very rarely use 2 coats of anything. Simply because by the time I'm done with it, we've got 4 or 5 coats of color on it anyway. So a fully opaque base coat is kind of, you know, not really necessary. I'm just going to try and keep my hands out of the wet paint right now. I love this color. It's very bright. It's got nice energy. I like it. Yeah, tonight we're having hot dogs. My guys like hot dogs. You know, and that, to a certain degree, hot dogs kind of insults my tastes a little, but so I have to compromise on occasion. So I have to get really good hot dogs because I'm a bit of a food snob. I'm sorry, I can live with it. So even my hot dogs have to be, you know, really good quality because I don't like cheap. So yeah, I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm a food snob. I like good food. I like cooking. So the idea of a hot dog is... So I like really good ballpark franks. And you can get them in the States. They make the ballpark franks are just amazing. They're delish. Okay, so I think I've got all but one leaf done. There's one here. Almost forgot about it. Tucked in behind the chamomile. Oh, you made me tea. Thank you.
Crunch.
Crunch. Here we go.
Everything seems to be running super smooth.
Oh, it is. Oh, I know, Kathy. Super good on the... Sue Broad. I'm with you, Sue. So that's why I like the really good high-end hot dogs. So we have a blueberry down here that I completely forgot about. So I'm going to quickly base coat that in behind those leaves. Oh, I've got way too much paint in this brush. Good Lord. There we are. So look at that. My goodness, we have leaves. I like the brush marks. I'm a fan of brush marks. Brush marks do some of the work for you. Sherry de Gras. This says a house full of food snobs, beer snobs, wine snobs. Yay! You'd fit right in. Her husband loves hot dogs with kimchi. Now that's a mix I've never heard of before, but we love kimchi. You know, my favorite hot dog, I love Ballpark Franks. Our local Costco here has just the most amazing all beef hot dogs. They're so good, but they just kill me. Time for tea, Elaine. I know, Renee just brought me a tea. Patrick, it's so much easier to make your own. WNY, New York hot dogs? Absolutely. Best kind. Oh, good kimchi is just to die for, and I love kimchi. So we have leaves and we have berries. So we're going to base coat those berries with a coat of warm white. Yes, Costco has kimchi. It's actually not bad. The one at Costco is actually not bad. I tried it. I can eat it out of the jar, but I make my own, so. So I'm going to, oh, a little too much there. Going to quickly base coat. Oh. Don't you hate it when you grab the wrong brush for the job and then you have to go find the right brush for the job? So I'm using a little bit of warm white and oh my God. I've got one rigger that has got, I don't know what's wrong with it, but it does not hold its shape at all anymore. I think it's just done. So I'm going to base coat all of these berries, the little bit of warm white. These are just pip berries. They're just a little berry that I wanted to, just to add a little fullness to this cup full of things and stuff. And I settled on a white berry just to soften it, so it doesn't take anything away from the rest of this. Because we want the flowers and the blueberries to be the center of attention, so to speak. Look at that. And I'm going to base the center of these flowers with just a sloppy base coat of warm white. Doesn't need to be too perfect. There we go. So, this is coming along really nicely. So, our little flowers here are just a small chamomile flower. I just wanted a small, something daisy, something soft. The difference between a daisy and chamomile is simply the size of the flower head itself. And a chamomile tends to have 1 to 2 layers of petals, whereas opposed to some daisies can have up to 5 or more. So we're going to use a little bit of thinned warm white. I'm using a small round, a number 4, and we're just going to stroke these petals in. They do not need to be fully opaque. And I have way too much water in my brush. There we go. There we go. I like a chamomile flower because it's got stubbier little petals. They don't have to be absolutely perfect. And they are going to overlap some things a little bit. So just a simple little round. So a little pressure on the brush to open the brush. But they don't have to be long petals. They also don't have to make it all the way back to the center of the flower. So they can sort of peter out a little bit. That's okay. We're not looking for perfect little blossoms here. There we go. I like the petals to look a little wonky. There we go. And I just noticed a leaf I missed. So I'm going to grab a rigger because it's in some tiny little spot here. It's just in behind this petal. And it's not a perfect leaf, it's just sort of back there. So I just want to get a little color in there. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be there. There we go. Look at that. There. So we are almost done. I keep forgetting about this little bit down here. Honestly. Oof. Go. I like these little wonky flowers. Wonky flowers are fun. Here we are. Good round will save you a lot of effort. Look at that. This one is coming along quickly. So I am using a round brush, Deanna, number 4. Yep. Web of confusion. Yes, I have the original hanging in my place. I'll probably send this one to Karen. If I didn't, she'd be really annoyed with me. So I'm going to dry this really well, and then we can start adding the shading and the highlighting to all of those leaves and to those flowers. There we go. So the color that I'm using for the center of these flowers is Baby Duck. I love this color. Baby Duck is such a pretty, pretty yellow, and it's perfect for the center of these flowers. And it's just a single coat, easy peasy, in the center of all of these little chamomile flowers. Simple is best. And again, I'm only using one coat because by the time we're done, we won't need more than that anyway. Oh, I won't forget that blueberry. It's just sitting there glaring up at me, reminding me to finish it. And make sure everything is dry. Now, one of my favorite colors that they put out last year is this one. It was Tea Berry. I just love this tone. It's so pretty. And then this year, they put out this one, which is called Coral Buzz. It's very close to Tea Berry, with one exception. This one is almost neon-like. And it works the same way as Tea Berry, except it's a little more transparent, which works well for me because I love transparent colors. And this one has almost a neon look to it. So I'm going to use a little bit of that Coral Buzz at the bottom of that yellow flower to put in, whoopsie daisy, there we go. This is our shadow. And I would do this with Tea Berry, but I really like the tone of this Coral Buzz. Just so you guys can see, it's close, but it's a little more intense. Very pretty color. I love it. It has great vibrancy. And I like the orange at that. Now, if you don't have the Coral Buzz and you don't have Tea Berry, but you do have a nice blaze orange, that orange flame, use that. It will work just fine. Use what you have. Look how fun that is. The heat that provides, the vibrancy that provides. It's great. Now, I need a little bit of Bahama Blue. Probably my favorite blue. Out of all of the blues that DecoArt has, I use this one the most. Bahama Blue, and I use it for so many things. So we're going to do two things. We're going to shade the flowers and we're going to shade those berries. So a little bit of Bahama Blue on the right side of each berry. It's just a little float, like so. And I leave a little sliver of the white showing on the right side. Just a little sliver. Just a little bit. Just peeking through. There we go. And then I'm going to shade the back side of each of these flowers right here. Right along that back there. So that blue comes about 1/3 of the way up the petal. And then you can do a little narrower on these small ones in the front. Just a little bit. When you put that little bit of blue in there, it actually complements that yellow. The yellow tends to look a little bit brighter the minute you put that blue in there. And if you have any petals that are overlapping slightly, you can use this to shade them, just to separate those petals a little bit. A little bit of Bahama Blue. I love this color. It shades those flowers really nicely. That little bit of blue just makes that yellow center and that pink center just pop. Look at that. And it grounds those flowers, brings all those petals right where they need to be. Now comes the fun part. Cheryl Green, hello. So I gotta get a little bit of asphaltum on my, I mean, how long have I painted and not touched my asphaltum? That can't happen. So a little bit of asphaltum. We're going to thin it out quite a bit. Little dot, don't need much. Thin it right out. Do not want this color full strength. And then you're going to deepen the shadow. Almost got too much. There we go. You're going to deepen that orange at the bottom of the flower with a little float of asphaltum. And we're going to put a little divot in the center of the flower. And it's just a little divot, not a big looping one. Just a little dot, like so. That's it. Little dot in the center. Look at this. See? Little float. And then that same asphaltum, you're going to go over the blue at the back side of this flower. Just there. Till it comes around to about the halfway mark. And it sets that row of petals at the back a little further. And it brings that center forward just a little bit. I know, you need some sunny. I think that's what it is. It's a very gloomy day today. What am I using to deepen the orange? Just a little float of heavily thinned asphaltum, which is that dark brown that I use all the time. Asphaltum. I love my asphaltum. Isn't that fun? Such a fun little design. So we're going to use either a rigger or a liner or a stylus, whatever you want, whatever works for you. And we're going to pick up a little bit of warm white. We're going to add a little texture to the top edge of our center with a series of little tiny dip dots. Make sure you come out onto the edge of the petals a little bit, just like that. I love the new colors. They're fun. They're bright and happy and cheerful, and they're wonderful colors. And you can play with them. You can have a great deal of fun. So just a few little dip dots. Look at that. So fun. Almost forgot this one down here. Thanks for reminding me. Little dip dots. Da, da, da. The little dip dots are just happy. Look at that. And we're going to do the same thing with a little bit of asphaltum. You just don't want to get too heavy-handed because you want to keep all that bright orange and pink. So we're just going to do a few. Just to balance things out. I don't want to make it so dark that we lose all of that bright tone that's in there. But we want to add a little texture. There we go. Et voila. Look at that. Nope, they have not sent out a list of discontinued colors. Not yet. Yeah, unfortunately, Michael's doesn't have them in stock yet, and I don't know when they will. So look how fun those daisies are. So now that we've got our berries painted white, and our flowers are almost finished, we have a couple of little things to do to the flowers, but we're pretty close. So we're going to take a little bit of that asphaltum, heavily thinned, and we're going to shade over top of the Bahama Blue on those berries. Right over top of it. Comme ça. And it makes those berries almost a little gray. Then we're going to take a bit of warm white, and on the upper side, upper left side, just before that blue starts, you're going to put a dot of warm white. And this just makes our berries look shiny. See? We have shiny berries. So now we have leaves. Leaves, leaves, leaves. I'm going to start with an angled shader. I'm working with 3/8, and the color I've chosen for my shading is black green. I won't forget the blueberry at the bottom. So a little bit of black green. I like to thin it out a little bit because I don't really want it to be too strong. This is our shading color at the base of the leaf. There we go. Oh, that's better. So a nice little U-shaped float at the base of the leaf where it joins the stem. Da, da, da. I love black green or sap green or plantation pine for a couple of reasons. I like them because they're really deep and quite dark, and and quite transparent. So it gives you nice shading. If you're Canadian and you're looking for the new colors, go and check out Country Bear. They're based in Ontario now. The new owner is in Ontario. Their service is excellent. They have a really great selection. They're very friendly and more than happy to help you with whatever you need. They've taken very good care of me. Every time I've asked for something that I've needed, they have gone out of their way to ensure that I can get it. So they've been fantastic. And it's country-bear-wood.com. And they have all of the new colors in stock. I know, because I just got mine. Whoop. There we are. So there's that lovely black green. We're going to come down to here and shade that one. There we go. Now, to shade these ones, we're going to be using a color called Thicket. It's a very nice green. It's an unusual one that I hadn't used very often, but I have grown to appreciate. This is it here. Country Bear is fantastic, Jill. You won't be sorry. And their shipping is reasonable and pretty quick. So, a little bit of Thicket. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to shade that leaf down at the point, like so, close to the stem. I love this color. It's just with that aloe, it's really pretty. And it has a cool undertone to it. Whereas these greens tend to lean towards the warm. Robin, yes, Decaware does send them to me, honey, but they send them from Country Bear. Country Bear is their distributor here. It's just easier than shipping it from Kentucky. There we are. Now, this leaf is underneath the other one, so I put a little float there so that it tucks under. And then I'm going to show you something fun with these leaves. Look how easy this is. I love this Thicket. It's one of those colors that kind of grew on me, if you know what I mean. Et voila. Look at that. Love it. So I'm going to dry this, and then we're going to highlight our leaves, and then we'll add some final details, and we'll finish that blueberry. They're obsessing with the blueberry down here because I keep forgetting to paint it. I don't know. I'm about to find out. The first time I tried it, it was blistering hot.
No.
Oh, you're pitiful. Maze is up at the cat door, whining. So the highlight color for these leaves is Margarita. It's a high yellow green. I love this color. Oh, Maze. Stop. She's pathetic. Oh, everybody's saying hello. So, a little highlight. We're going to go to the tip of the leaf with that Margarita. So, the float goes almost all the way back to the shadow, where the shadow starts, and comes out to the point, and comes up the other side. So we got a nice little highlight. So now you know why I don't really worry about putting a fully opaque base coat on, because by the time we're done, it isn't necessary. So come down here, out to the point. What's up with Miss Maze? Did you take her out to the park?
No, we just went for a walk and
Oh, okay.
we found a deer den.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. With some deer.
With some deer in it. That must have excited her no end.
They looked like her.
Yeah, well, they're the same color.
They took off in a hurry, though.
Oh, no doubt. I'm amazed Maze didn't go after them.
Nope.
She
She
probably.
just didn't know what they were.
Oh,
And then proceeded to smell everything.
everything. Yes. Yes, that would be Maze. She's coming up on 2 years old soon, isn't she?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
August.
August. She's a pretty puppy dog.
Macy's crying because her toes are wet. No, I dried off her feet.
Yeah, which she complained about too, I can promise you.
Yeah.
She doesn't like having her feet touched. Doesn't like to have her tail touched either. So, nice little highlight with that margarita out at the points. So when I was talking about highlighting these little leaves here, you can do that with a little bit of sea glass. You could do that with a little bit of warm white, but I'm going to do it with a little bit of Bahama blue. Because it has that cool undertone, I can get away with putting a little bit of blue at the tip of these leaves. And the interesting thing is that Bahama blue takes on a different look entirely when you put it over top of this muted green. And although it picks up in a variety of places, it'll give you a nice highlight, but it still doesn't look like that garish bright blue. But it does give you that frosted look at the tip of the leaves. And it pairs very nicely with those blueberries. I'm a firm believer. You got to play with color every once in a while. Just, see what happens. And because we're using cooler colors in here, we've got Bahama blue in the white berries. We have it in the flowers. We can bring a little of it into these leaves quite easily. And it does, instead of giving you a blue look, it just gives you a cool green look. And it keeps those leaves looking frosted. Easy peasy. So, I'm going to come down here to our blueberry because I know that that's driving you guys crazy. So, I'm going to shade underneath our blueberry with a little bit of lamp black. And then I'm going to shade into that little divot. And I'm going to highlight the berry with a little bit of that Blue Harbor. There we go. And we're going to give each of these berries a slightly brighter highlight. I'm going to bring in a little bit of warm white and mix it with that I like a slightly brighter highlight on those berries, just to make them pop. It's just a little bit of warm white mixed with that Blue Harbor. There's one little leaf right up there.
Somebody noticed you missed a leaf?
I missed a leaf. I noticed I missed a leaf. Just a little one. There we go. Now all that is left is to start connecting some of these leaves and adding some little fine little details to this. So I'm going to shade our little leaf. A little bit of black green. Grab a little highlight color. Oops. Didn't rinse my brush. A little highlight color. And knowing Renee, he's probably already got the wheel ready.
Yep.
That was a nice snag, Margie. There we go. So I'm going to grab my liner and I'm going to thin out a little bit of that margarita. And then I'm going to add a little bit of warm white to it, just to make it a little more opaque. And we're going to connect all of our leaves with that thinned margarita and warm white. You could do it with a darker color. I kind of like the lighter value. I just find that it seems to make the leaves stand out a little bit more. And it's a little more delicate. It just doesn't look so heavy. There we go. And don't forget, we have to connect all these berries. And then we've got a stem. The vines and tendrils. I like vines and tendrils. And I think we need one here. Just 'cause. And then we have those blueberry leaves. I'm going to use a little bit of thicket to connect them, just to keep all the colors in hand. Love this color. So pretty. And then to finish off those leaves, I'm a big fan of giving a softer outline to the leaves, so I like to put this little scribbly line around them.
Been wondering where Charlotte Downey's been?
I know she was. Hello, Charlotte. Yeah, I knew that. Welcome back, Charlotte. So I like these little scribbly lines. I don't worry too much about whether or not the leaves are, that line is perfectly on the edge of the leaf. It doesn't matter.
What's that brush?
This one is a Dynasty Micron, and it's a 5/0 extra long detail liner. I love this one. This one for me works like a pen. It's just one of those. It's an easy brush to control, even though it's a really long one. It's an easy brush to control. Especially when you're not worried about whether or not things are perfect. They don't need to be. I like little curlicues and wonky things. I like wonky. Wonky works. There we go. Look at that. So once you have all of those little fine things done, you can do things like this. If you find you need a filler, you can just stroke in, small blades of grass in places wherever you feel it needs it. Whenever I'm painting something like this, I'm usually aiming for something with a little more balance. So I want the weight of this to sort of balance up here. If it doesn't balance, then I got to bring something down here. So, which is why this little blueberry is down here. I wanted to carry some of that along with it. So we have a blueberry. And we're going to give our leaves a little oomph, like so. Here we go. Now, to finish this off, one of my favorite things to do is to take my gel pen and add scribbly little details around the flowers. This is a little too wet just yet for that. So I will dry this, and then we're going to take that fugly brush again and a little bit of thin asphaltum. Ooh. And we're going to spatter with a little bit of thin asphaltum. And then rinse the brush, and then a little bit with a little thinned warm white. I like a little spatter, especially on vintagey things. I like the look. There we go. That needs to dry. And then last but not least, it needs your scribblature in the corner. Karen, this one will go to you. You inspired it, so it's all yours. Karen Jones.
The Karen.
The Karen. My Karen.
What gel pens do you like to prevent smearing?
I don't really worry about smearing, to be perfectly honest. The pens that I use are the Uniball Signo. I use the .38. These ones here, I use them in both black and white.
And red.
And red. I use the red for tracing, and I use the white for highlighting. I use the black for detailing. I don't worry about whether or not they smear. I let them dry really well, and I seal everything with 1 or 2 coats of Decor Art matte spray before I varnish. Simply because I use so many different mediums that it behooves me to make sure that nothing is going to bleed or run, and I do that by sealing everything with some sort of a setting spray. And my favorite, of course, is a Decor Art matte spray. So there you have it. Blueberries and chamomile in a rusty tin cup.
Sounds like a prison dish.
A prison dish? Really?
Just saying. Oh, it didn't work.
What didn't work? Oh, there it is. This is a lot of fun to paint. A lot of fun to paint. I like using simple little faux finishes as details and things, and that's why I really like this rusty cup. I love all things and anything vintage, so this type of work really appeals to me. And it's not difficult to paint. It's fun to paint. You'll have a blast with it, and I needed to do another simply.
Broken.
With broken. You broke the wheel? How did you break the wheel? Woohoo! That's a pretty full wheel.
Why is it being weird?
That's a very full wheel.
There. Anybody need a car?
Jeez.
Service and parts?
Okay, so just to reiterate, the giveaways for today are quite substantial. We wanted to give you something from the Easter Bunny. So we have, not baskets, but boxes. We have 3 of them. And the boxes are filled with everything from surfaces to patterns to kits. There's stencils, there's brushes, there's paint, there's all kinds of great little goodies in there. And each box is worth an estimated $200 US. It's loaded with goodies from DecoArt, from Dynasty Brush, from Renee and myself, as well as some of our suppliers like Sandy McTeer Design and Deb Antonick at paintingwithdeb.com. So there's lots and lots of goodies in there. So if you guys are ready to spin,
How many do I have?
200.
200 on the nose.
200 on the nose. So 3 of you are going to win really great goodie bags. We love the Easter bunnies. Spin it.
Sounds like Maze is being a brat.
Yep. And the first one goes to Marlene Powers Snyder. Remember, you have to head over to my website at tracymoreau.net. Click on the little speech bubble on the lower right-hand corner of the screen and then send me some information with your shipping address. And we'll hang on to any prizes and for a period of 2 weeks. And if they're unclaimed, they go back in the bin. So Marlene Powers Schneider. Next one.
That's one.
Pam Gauntz.
Pam Gauntz.
And we have one more. And the last one goes to
Like
Bonnie Duncan.
I think you have her.
Probably. Yep. Awesome. So Marlene Snyder, Pam Gauntz,
Bonnie Duncan.
and Bonnie Duncan, congratulations. You won our giveaways for today. Hope you enjoy them. Oodles of goodies in those boxes. For the rest of you, thank you so much for joining me, as you do every week. We greatly appreciate having you here. It's always fun to paint with you. And next Saturday, we're going to be painting that pretty little piece with the brown-eyed Susans and the ladybug. That is the piece that we're doing next week. The kit and the pattern will be available probably Monday. So in the meantime, everybody have a safe and happy Easter. Enjoy time with your family and with your friends, and lay off the Easter bunnies. Love ya. Stay safe.
Pet your dog.
And pet your dog.
I would be happy to take an unclaimed prize. That's not how it works.
So, thanks, guys.